Tokunbo looks like the kind of girl pastors proudly introduce to visiting ministers. Long gown, head turban, no makeup, no jewelry except tiny earrings. The perfect church girl. But on this particular night, she was sitting alone at a small open bar, nervously drinking from a bottle of Coke like someone hiding from the world. Every few seconds, her eyes darted around cautiously. Then, after making sure nobody was paying attention, she emptied the remaining Coke in a one gulp and signaled to the waiter. Moments later, a bottle of small stout landed on her table. Quickly, Tokunbo grabbed the empty Coke bottle beneath the table and secretly poured the alcohol into it. Then she dropped the empty stout bottle on the floor and calmly raised the Coke bottle to her lips again, like nothing had happened. To everyone else, she was just another innocent girl drinking soft drink. Until disaster entered the bar. A group of church members marched in carrying heavy Bibles and crusade flyers. The women wore long skirts and tightly wrapped scarves, while the men looked painfully holy, like they had personally escorted Moses down Mount Sinai. "Crusade! Crusade! Crusade!" one of them shouted loudly. "There will be a mighty outpouring of the Holy Spirit this July. Come and experience the power of God." Tokunbo nearly choked. "Not here. Not tonight." As the church members shared flyers around the bar, one of the women suddenly froze. It was Blessing, and she had spotted Tokunbo. Blessing hurried toward her table in shock, while Tokunbo subtly tried to hide her face. "Sister Tokes!" Blessing exclaimed. "What a surprise!" Tokunbo forced an awkward smile. "Oh, Sister Blessing, God bless you." Blessing looked around the bar in confusion and disgust. "What are you doing here?" Tokunbo lifted the Coke bottle. I just came to quench my thirst with a bottle of Coke." Blessing frowned. "But couldn't you buy Coke somewhere else? Why here all of a sudden? Why here, all of all places?" Tokunbo straightened immediately. "Sister Blessing," she said defensively, "being in a bar doesn't make someone a sinner. Judge not lest ye be judged." Blessing slowly nodded. "Well, you're right." Then she smiled innocently. "I'm thirsty too. Can I share your Coke?" Tokunbo froze. Her soul nearly left her body. Charity was the kind of church girl everybody admired. Always smiling, always respectful, always carried a Bible so big it looked like she personally translated it from Hebrew. That night, she stood outside the church building, humming worship songs softly to herself. Dressed decently but stylishly, with her scarf carefully wrapped around her hair, Charity looked every bit like a young woman deeply devoted to God. Then Rosalind walked up to her. "Charity," she asked curiously, "aren't you waiting for Daddy and Mommy in the Lord to give you a ride home?" Charity smiled calmly. "Not tonight. I still have a few things to finish up before leaving." Rosalind raised a brow. "At this hour?" Charity nodded innocently. Brother Ezekiel promised to help me study the book of Revelations. Almost immediately, two young men stepped out of the church building, Ezekiel and Thomas. The moment Rosalie spotted Ezekiel, she grinned knowingly. "Oh, Brother Ezekiel, is he already?" Charity adjusted her scarf quickly. "See you tomorrow at choir practice," Rosalind teased before walking away. Thomas also said goodbye and left, leaving Charity alone with Ezekiel outside the quiet church building. For a brief second, the atmosphere changed. No choir members, no church elders, no witnesses. Just the two of them. Ezekiel stepped closer. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Charity lowered her eyes shyly. "Did you tell the security guard we'll be using the black hole?" she asked. "I don't want us getting locked in again like last time." Ezekiel smirked. "I already told him we'll be there for at least an hour." Then he leaned slightly closer and said into her ears, "After all, the book of Revelations is very deep." Charity smiled, and together the two of them disappeared back into the church building. The church building had gone quiet. The choir members were gone, the pastors had left, even the security lights outside looked sleepy. Inside one small room, at the back of the church, only a faint stream of light spilled through the window. Two Bibles lay open on the floor, but nobody was reading scripture anymore. Ezekiel and Charity sat dangerously close in the darkness, their whispers slowly fading into silence as emotions took over. For weeks they had called it Bible study. For weeks they had pretended the long stairs meant nothing. But that night, temptation finally spoke louder than conviction. Charity grabbed his shirt. Ezekiel pulled her closer. And before either of them could stop themselves, the distance between holiness and desire disappeared completely. The room grew quieter, hearts racing, breathing uneven. And as they held onto each other tightly, they slowly disappeared into the shadows of the small church room, while the open Bibles remained on the floor beside them. Rebecca moved beneath the flashing lights like someone trying to disappear inside the prison. The nightclub was loud. Men shouted over each other. Naira and dollar notes floated through the air like confetti. Behind the small black marks covering part of her face, nobody could recognize the respected church girl who led worship every Sunday morning. At least, that was what she hoped. Dressed in glittering stage clothes, Rebecca swayed carefully around the stage while the crowd cheered wildly around her. Some men stretched out money toward her while others simply stared, completely captivated. But behind the performance was exhaustion. Behind the confident movements was fear. Because every single night she stepped into that crowd, Rebecca carried one terrifying question in her heart. What happens if someone from church sees me here? Still, she forced a smile, because being a good girl who did decent work could not pay her parents' hospital bills, and prayers alone could not keep food on the table. So night after night, Rebecca buried her shame beneath flashing lights, loud music, and flying cash, hoping God could still hear her, even inside a place like this. The noise from the nightclub faded the moment Rebecca stepped into the changing room. For the first time that night, it was quiet. So she shut the door behind her and slowly removed the small black marks covering her face. And suddenly, the mysterious dancer disappeared. Rebecca was beautiful, soft-featured, elegant, the kind of woman people naturally trusted the moment they saw her. She sat before the mirror and reached for a face swipe, gently cleaning layers of makeup from her face. Then her eyes landed on something sitting quietly on the table beside her. A Bible, old, worn out, heavily used. Rebecca froze for a second. Then slowly, she closed her eyes. Her lips moved silently. A quick prayer, a desperate one. Just then, another dancer walked into the room laughing. It was Adaeze. Unlike Rebecca, Adaeze wore her rebellion comfortably. Other than that, she teased with a smirk. Rebecca ignored the comment and continued wiping her makeup. "Are you done for the night?" she asked calmly. Adaeze grinned mischievously. "Not yet. I've got a client waiting in the champagne room." Rebecca looked up immediately. "Please be careful." Adaeze laughed. "I'm always careful. Besides, security is everywhere." Rebecca nodded quietly. Then, almost surprisingly, she asked, "So, are you coming for the church program tonight?" Adaeze blinked. "Wait, that video is tonight?" Rebecca nodded with quiet excitement. "It's going to be life-changing," she said. Adaeze stared at her for a long moment before shaking her head slowly. "I honestly don't know how you do it." Rebecca frowned. "Do what?" "Lie to yourself," Adaeze said. The room suddenly felt heavier. Adaeze folded her arms. "Look, we all believe in God in our own way. For you, you're trying to become a pastor while working here. You lead prayers in church and dance with this club at night. How do you even balance that in your head?" Rebecca's expression hardened instantly. "You know why I'm doing this." Her voice cracked slightly. "I'm the one feeding my family." Adaeze softened briefly, but only briefly. "Maybe, but eventually you have to choose." There was silence. Rebecca stood up slowly and walked toward her locker, pulling out her clothes. Then quietly, almost painfully, she said, "Church doesn't pay hospital bills. This place does." Adaeze had no response to that. She simply shook her head and walked out, leaving Rebecca alone with the mirror and the Bible staring back at her. Barely 2 hours later, Rebecca was at church and atmosphere felt heavy with worship. Soft keyboard melodies floated through the air, while dim golden lights wrapped around the altar like heaven itself had stepped into the room. Standing on the podium of Rebecca, eyes closed, microphone in hand, her voice poured into the church with so much emotion that it almost sounded like a cry for help, disguised as worship. Behind her, the small church band followed her lead carefully, slowing their instruments each time her voice cracked with feeling. To you, our hearts are open, she sang softly. And to you, our hands we raise. Every word felt real. Every note felt sincere. From the way she worshipped, nobody would ever believe this same girl spent her nights hiding behind flashing lights and black masks. To everyone inside our church, Rebecca was holy. A pastor stood close to the altar with his Bible pressed tightly against his chest, eyes shut, lips moving quietly in prayer. Lord, touch your people tonight, he prayed. The atmosphere deepened. Somewhere in the congregation, quiet sniffles could be heard as people wiped tears from their eyes. And right there on the altar, Rebecca lifted her face toward heaven again. Beautiful, broken, and worshipping like someone trying desperately to be forgiven. But then, for one tiny second, a painful memory had suddenly crossed her mind. A memory she wished she could outrun. Still, she held the microphone tighter and continued singing through the emotion gathering in her eyes. Even when I fail you, your mercy still finds me, she whispered to herself. And nobody in that church knew that only a few hours earlier, Rebecca had been somewhere completely different. The devil is a liar! The preacher screamed from television. The old TV nearly vibrated from the pulse of the sermon. Inside the modest sitting room, Pastor Benga sat upright like heaven's security officer, while his wife, Pastor Demilade, watched quietly beside him. Then Tokunbo walked in, chewing peppermint. Wrong move. Her mother, Pastor Demilade, looked up first. Tokunbo, where did you disappear to after service? Tokunbo froze for half a second. Oh, I went to get fresh air, she replied. Her father, Pastor Benga, turned slowly. Dangerously slowly. Fresh air? He asked, eyes burning with something akin to anger and disappointment. You are the pastor's daughter, not a visitor, he yelled. Tokunbo sighed internally. This was a problem with her parents. They were the pastors, not her. Yet they want to mold and shape her to become like them. I know, Daddy, she muttered. Then his eyes narrowed. What is in your mouth? He asked. Tokunbo blinked. Peppermint? She responded. Is it gum? Asked. Daddy, please. She almost laughed. Chewing gum is not a sin. Pastor Benga looked unconvinced, like peppermint was the first step towards destruction. Meanwhile, The preacher on TV shouted, "Any power fighting your destiny shall die by fire." Pastor Benga completed immediately from the sofa. Tokunbo nearly rolled her eyes. Pastor Demilade stepped in gently before another sermon started inside the house itself. "Your father and I are fasting for the crusade. But if you don't want to fast, there's soup in the freezer." "Thank you, Mommy. I'm hungry." Pastor Benga looked personally betrayed. "Why shouldn't she fast?" Pastor Demilade sighed and said to her husband, "Daddy, even Jesus did not force people." That statement nearly ended the discussion peacefully. Nearly, but trust her father to turn things around. "You are spoiling this girl," he shouted. Have you read where it was written that Jesus told his disciples not to fast?"
Tokunbo didn't even wait for the rest. She quietly escaped towards the kitchen before another revival service started in the sitting room. And immediately she disappeared, Pastor Benga grabbed the remote and increased the TV volume aggressively. "Fire! Holy Ghost fire!" The sound echoed through the entire house. Tokunbo closed her eyes in the hallway. It was going to be a long night.
Later that night, Tokunbo was back inside her bedroom, scrolling through photos on her laptop. Her fingers moved quickly across the laptop keyboard when suddenly her phone rang. Tokunbo glanced at the screen and immediately gasped. "Mark!" She grabbed the phone fast. "Hey, what's good? It's been forever." A familiar laugh echoed from the other side. "Are you kidding me?" she yelled. "Where are you?" "Yes, so babe, I'm in town," Mark replied, still laughing. Tokunbo sat upright immediately. "Wait, you're serious?" Her eyes widened. "Yeah, you live close to Babs and Nyashaon, yeah? I'm headed there right now," he continued. Tokunbo almost jumped out of her skin. "You mean you're actually in my area?" she asked. "I told you I'd relocate soon," he laughed. Tokunbo almost screamed, but didn't, or her parents would come running into her room. "Did you get the job?" she asked. Mark laughed loudly. "Calm down first. I'm staying with my cousin for now. Well, I had an interview this morning." Tokunbo grinned instantly. "Omo, this deserves a celebration," she chuckled. And just like that, the boredom inside Pastor Benga's house disappeared. Mark chuckled. "So, are you home? I can come pick you up." There was silence. Tokunbo's smile vanished immediately. She whispered into the receiver, lowering her voice fast and glancing nervously toward the bedroom door. "Don't come to my house." That sentence alone carried years of trauma. "If my parents see you, revival service will start immediately." Mark burst into laughter. "You're still doing good, daughter, for your pastor parents." Tokunbo rolled her eyes dramatically. "You don't understand these people." Then she smiled mischievously. "I'll send you the address of the filling station near my house." Secret agent," she said. "Exactly," he laughed. "All right then. See you soon." The call ended, and for a moment, Tokunbo just sat there smiling at her phone like trouble had personally texted her location. Then slowly, a mischievous grin spread across her face. A very dangerous grin. When Charity returned home from church that night, the first thing she noticed was how quiet the apartment was. She pushed open the door of the cozy mini flat and stepped inside, shutting it gently behind her. "Hey," she greeted. Her housemate, Buzo, emerged from the hallway at that moment. She was dressed in bomb shorts and a tight singlet that left little to the imagination. Without much interest in conversation, she walked straight to the center table and grabbed a bottle of granuts. "Hi," she replied casually. "Is Emeka here?" Charity asked. Buzo nodded. Charity smiled faintly. "Tell him I said hi." "Okay," Buzo responded offhandedly. Buzo turned and headed back toward her room. Just before disappearing inside, she paused and asked, as though performing a performative ritual, instead of being really interested, "How was church service?" A genuine smile spread across Charity's face. "Spirit-filled," Charity replied. Buzo nodded. Then she disappeared into her room and shut the door. The apartment fell silent again. Charity walked to the sofa and dropped into it with a tired sigh. The joy she had felt only minutes ago during worship still lingered in her heart. But somehow, the moment she stepped into the apartment, reality came rushing back. The loneliness, the waiting, the uncertainty. She leaned her head against the backrest and stared at the ceiling. The church had been full of music, laughter, and testimonies. Here, all she could hear was the hum of the fan and the muffled sounds coming from Buzo's room. For a brief moment, Charity wondered if anyone would ever look at her the way people look at Buzo. Then she quickly pushed the thought away. She closed her eyes and whispered a short prayer. Then she thought to herself, perhaps God was still writing her story. The first rays of morning sunlight filtered through the torn curtains of Rebecca's small two-room apartment. She was fast asleep on the sitting room floor. An open Bible rested beside her head, its pages spread wide, where she had apparently stopped reading sometime during the night. Still dressed in the clothes she had worn to vigil, exhaustion had finally claimed her before she could make it to her bed. The house was modest and worn. The cushions on the sofa had lost their shape years ago, and the walls bore the stains of age and hardship. The bedroom door creaked open. Rebecca's mother, Mommy Justina, stepped out slowly. Age and failing eyesight had made her movements cautious, but not cautious enough. Before she realized it, her foot landed on something soft. "Ah!" The elderly woman stumbled forward and fell. "Oh!" Rebecca cried out. Mommy Justina immediately panicked. I'm sorry, darling. I'm sorry." Rebecca winced as she struggled into a sitting position. Her mother did the same, still apologizing. "It's okay, Mom," Rebecca said. Then, Rebecca noticed the familiar movement. Her mother was rubbing her eyes again. "Have you been using your eye drops?" "Yes, I have," Mommy Justina replied, blinking repeatedly. "Don't worry about me. I just woke up. That's why I can't see clearly." Rebecca frowned. Stop rubbing your eyes, Mom. Remember what the doctor said. Her gaze searched her mother's face. Where are your glasses? I left them in the room. Slowly, Mommy Justina rose and settled onto the old sofa. How was video? A smile immediately brightened Rebecca's face. Wonderful, Mom. It was wonderful. Her mother nodded approvingly. And your boss at the restaurant, did he allow you leave on time? Rebecca's smile faded slightly. Her parents thought she was working at the restaurant. How could she tell them what she did for a living? Yes, Mom. The answer came a little too quickly. Mommy Justina sighed. How I wish you had finished your university education. You would have gotten a better job instead of running errands during the day and working at a restaurant at night. Rebecca lowered her eyes. 5 years. 5 years since she had paused her studies. 5 years of postponing her dreams so the family could survive. Yet somehow, she still carried hope like a candle and refused to go out. She looked up and smiled. I'll continue my studies, Mom. I promise. Mommy Justina stared at her daughter. But it's been 5 years. Rebecca's eyes softened. I made a promise to you and Daddy. Her voice was quiet but determined. I said I would become an architect. She paused, then added, and a pastor. Her mother smiled. The same dream Rebecca had been talking about since she was a little girl. You forgot something. Rebecca laughed. What? You always wanted to sing. The two women burst into laughter. That's true. Rebecca grinned. I always wanted to be a gospel singer. Rebecca added. Their laughter filled the room for a moment, pushing poverty, sickness, and disappointment outside the door. Then Mommy Justina looked at her daughter carefully. You haven't slept all night. Why don't you go inside and rest beside your father? Rebecca gasped dramatically. Ah, it's Saturday, oh. She jumped to her feet. The Niger errand girl has work to do. Her mother laughed. Rebecca began counting on her fingers. Mrs. Tremor sent money for dried fish and smoked fish. Then Auntie Foley wants her tomatoes blended. Then I have to buy fresh fish for Mr. Solomon's wife, who just had a baby. She shook her head. I have plenty work this morning. Mommy Justina watched her daughter with pride, shining in her tired eyes. You make me proud, darling. The words hit Rebecca harder than they should have. Suddenly, her smile trembled. Tears gathered in her eyes. Not because life was easy. Not because she wasn't tired. Not because her dreams weren't slipping further away with each passing year. But because despite everything, her mother was still proud of her. And somehow, that made all the sacrifices worth it. 3 girls, 1 fate, countless secrets. But how long can darkness hide behind a Sunday smile? Find out in the next episode of Church Girls.